In this video, we're going to look at how you could use a VHF in an emergency situation. So, let's consider this surprisingly common scenario. For whatever reason, you find yourself on a vessel, and the appropriately qualified radio operator is incapacitated. Maybe you're on a family sailing trip and the skipper falls unconscious, or maybe you're on a commercial ship and you take to a life raft but the normal radio operator didn't make it. Legally, of course, to use a VHF you need to have completed a course and be appropriately qualified, but when it comes to a life and death situation, preservation of life should always take priority. In the life raft situation, hopefully you grabbed a handheld radio on your way to the raft. It's not actually standard equipment, but along with EPIRBs and SARTs, it's one of those things that you should always grab if you have a chance. This is a typical handheld VHF with the main body and a flexible aerial that sticks out the top. On this particular example, we've got a combined on-off switch and volume control at the top. You just turn it and it will click on and increase the volume all the way to the top. On the front, you've got the main screen, probably giving you loads of information. We only really care about the channel number today, which in this case is channel 16. Below the screen are the main buttons. There are any number of buttons depending on your exact model, but the important ones today are these two, which increase and decrease the channel number, and this one, which automatically sets the radio up for the distress channel. Notice how it has the number 16 written on it. Channel 16 is the channel for distress. It's also for calling, but that will be covered in your actual radio course. The final button is the PTT or push to talk button. When you push this, your radio starts transmitting. You would speak into the microphone, just here, when you transmit, and you listen for a response coming out of the speaker. Now, the big thing to remember with VHF is that there can only be one transmission at a time. If you push to talk, your radio starts transmitting and all other radios in range on the same channel will hear what you say. If someone else then tries to transmit on the same channel, it's not going to work. Both will transmit, but they're going to cut across each other and no one's going to hear what either transmission is saying. That's where you hear the movies and that word over. Over is a code word on the radio indicating that you've finished speaking and you're releasing your push to talk button. It tells everyone else the channel is clear and you're ready to receive a reply. If someone's talking to you, wait until you hear the word over before you start to transmit your response. So you're in your raft with your radio on and you want to attract attention. You're already listening on channel 16 as we covered that, but now you want to get help. You want to make a radio broadcast. If you really want to get the attention of everyone listening, as you would in an emergency, you start transmitting on channel 16, beginning your broadcast with the emergency word Mayday. Emphasize it too, repeat it 3 times slowly and clearly. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. As all other sets will have a qualified operator, that word Mayday kicks in certain actions. Stations are going to start logging the radio traffic and all non-emergency traffic on the channel will stop. Remember what we said about channels only carrying one transmission at a time? No one wants to cut off an emergency broadcast. I'm not going to cover the precise message you should transmit, as this video isn't a substitute for the course. Maybe broadcast you don't know how to use the radio and then just hope the Coast Guard can help. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. I'm sinking. I've never used a radio before and I need help. In theory, the Coast Guard will answer and can then guide you from there. Again though, I can't emphasise enough the importance of getting qualified. Consider the training a part of your emergency equipment. You'll learn that you need to transmit your identity, your position, the nature of your distress, what help you need, the number of persons on board, and any other additional information the rescuers might want. You're never going to remember all that from this video though, so just say you want help. Depending on your exact location, you could find that no one responds. VHF does have a limited range, entirely dependent on the height of the antenna. Your handheld radio at the surface of the water, as it would be in a life raft, typically only has a range of a couple of miles. A yacht with an antenna at the top of the mast can increase that range to 20-30 miles, and a ship or shore station with a massive antenna can transmit significantly further still. In some spots you may be able to hear the Coast Guard clearly, and they would have no idea about your transmission from your handheld radio. To get the increase from range, you want to use your vessel's fixed VHF set if you have one. They operate in basically the same way as the handheld, but they're more powerful and they're likely to have the additional feature of DSC. DSC, or Digital Selective Calling, is a bit like a paging system for radio. Each station has an MMSI number, which is the equivalent of its phone number. You can page any individual set, or you can just page all sets in range. The automatic distress button will automatically page every set in range, so it's usually hidden behind a cover to prevent accidental transmission. When you activate it, by lifting the cover and pressing and holding the button most likely, it's going to send an alert to DSC radios in range, sounding an alarm on those units. It'll automatically give the receivers information like your identity, maybe even your position and things, as well as telling them a distress transmission is coming. You'd then transmit the verbal distress, just as you would with a handheld radio. So, as it all does sound quite complicated, why bother with VHF at all? Why not just dial 999 or 911 from a telephone? Well, the critical thing about VHF is that it's designed for the marine environment. All vessels need to be equipped with VHF, so if the Coast Guard doesn't respond, then a passing ship might. Not only that, but VHF is so much easier to locate as well. The Coast Guard and search and rescue craft can actually triangulate a VHF transmission. It's most commonly used when people make false calls, but it can also be used to locate a vessel in distress if they don't know their position. We've only briefly touched on VHF today, looking at how it could be used in a distress situation. Of course, it's also used for a whole range of things like VTS, port communications, shipping information and weather updates. For all that though, you definitely do need to become a qualified operator. And that brings us to the end of today's video.